counting the
Cost of being a nursing student.
great. Okay. So, Kevin, why do you want to be a nurse?
Why do I want to be a nurse? So that's a really good question. I when I first was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life, I guess you can say, I first wanted to pick something um, that I knew would be practical as far as work was concerned. Since I'm a little older, I was like, I go to school, I want to be able to do something that once I graduate, I can get a job right away. So I kind of thought about a couple of professions. Nursing was one of them. I had family members who uh, were the retired nurses or are currently working in the nursing profession, and I knew that I enjoyed helping people. I know it's very generic, and I'm a little deeper than that. Um, so beyond just helping people, in my experiences um, with healthcare, working as a nursing assistant, and even talking to people who have been in healthcare systems as patients, um, you know, the feedback was different. Some people were their experiences weren't the best, um, and I feel as though, especially here in America, our healthcare system, because people who are in healthcare make a pretty decent living as doctors, nurses, your physical therapists. So money is a big reason a lot of people go into healthcare. And I'm saying that because I'm not saying everyone who goes into it is going into it for the money, but a lot of people um, kind of lose sight of the reason they should be there. So, for example, I mean, I've had patients who tell me they don't feel like anybody listens to them. Like their doctor doesn't listen, the nurse doesn't listen. And so they're frustrated because they're there in the hospital, sick, not well, and they don't feel like they're being heard. And so, one reason I'm choosing this profession, choosing to go into nursing, is because I want my patients to be heard. I want them to feel like they truly matter. And I think a bigger thing for me is not all patients who are in the hospital are on their deathbed, but for those who are sick and who are kind of headed in that direction, um, I think I believe that they deserve to have um, their last moments be moments where they know somebody actually truly cares about them. So,
Wow, so you pretty much want to redeem the industry.
in, I mean, I'm one person, but I want to do I want to do what I can. You know.
Yeah, I mean, one person can do a lot, at least for one person at a time, I guess.
Right. Right.
My dad passed away from cancer, so I know what it's like to be a patient
Mm-hmm.
family member. So it's pretty depressing. And every time I walk into the doctor's office, I don't feel like I'm going into a good place. I feel like I'm going to a place where I smell death, I smell pain, I hear
Right.
agony. The money is threatening. It's not really friendly environment, at least for me. So I think when people walk in there, they are very vulnerable. They're very scared because it's not
Right.
free. You have to worry about money. You need to worry about health.
Right.
So people are very, very weak when they walk in there. So I think you can make definitely a lot of impact. So tell me a little bit about your background as someone that has witnessed a lot in terms of serving patients as nurses and doctors. You said your family members have been
Right.
serving patients.
Right. So, some new information I learned maybe a couple of months ago. So, my grandfather, I never met my grandfather. This is my maternal grandfather. he used to be a nursing assistant. He worked at the VA hospital in Tuskegee, Alabama, as a nursing assistant. My mother is a licensed practitioner nurse. She's been a nurse for 30 plus years at the VA hospital in Tuskegee, Alabama. Um, my dad's brother, one of his older brothers, is a retired registered nurse. He was a nurse, I think, for over maybe 30 years too. Kind of just sharing that with you, there's healthcare is definitely something that is not strange to my family.
Okay. So you said nurse assistant, nurse practitioner, uh, RN. What is the RN one?
Registered nurse, yeah.
Registered nurse. What are the differences between those three?
So a nursing assistant practically, I'm not going to say they don't have any, well, they don't have a degree basically. A nursing assistant, you can pretty much do that with just a couple of months or a couple of weeks of training. A licensed practitioner nurse, you first you practically get a certificate, so you don't necessarily have an associate's or a bachelor's degree. With that, I think you can become a licensed practitioner nurse. They have like a couple of programs. I think you can probably do that in a year, maybe even less than a year. A registered nurse is someone who actually has their bachelor's of science or their associates of science. They have programs where you can be a registered nurse with just an associate's degree as well, but you do have to sit and take a state board exam, which is the NCLEX. That certifies you to be a registered nurse.
Oh, I see. So nurse assistants, you can jump in there after a few weeks or of training.
Right, so that's kind of what I'm doing. They have, I mean, today they have so many different names for it. They have nursing. You can call it a nursing assistant. You can call it a CNA. You can call it a patient care technician, because that's what I'm a patient care technician at a children's hospital right now. That's what I do.
So if one person walks up and say, "I want to be a nursing assistant, give me a training," can they give me a
Right.
job?
Right. So, for example, so when I first became a nursing assistant a couple of years ago, I just applied for the job. I never worked in a hospital before. So when I got the interview for the position, the nurse supervisor that interviewed me, she told me that they would prefer someone with experience, but it was not like totally like necessary. So she ended up hiring me, and I had probably like 6 weeks of orientation where they kind of pretty much trained me on basically how to be a nursing assistant. And the training is very thorough. You're there with someone, they're showing you pretty much what you do as a nursing assistant.
Wow. So 6 weeks of training, and they interviewed you. So do you remember what kind of interview you went through? Do they ask you questions?
So it's a very generic, like for any job interview. They ask you questions about your work ability. Um, I feel like the interview is your basic job interview for any job you probably would
Okay.
apply for.
So they don't. Do they check if you're like mentally stable or socially functionable or like criminal check or anything like that?
Yeah. So they'll do. If they choose to hire you, they'll do a background check.
Okay.
But it's not. I feel like it wasn't very extensive.
Okay. So that's something you can consider. And
Right.
then a year of training. That's what your mom is doing, right? Nursing practitioner.
She's a LPN. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Licensed nursing practitioner.
License.
Okay, about a year. So, uh, does she go through a institute or something to get that job?
She went to a vocational college. This was like years ago, but
Okay.
she did go to a vocational college for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
so vocational college, about a year of
Mhm.
training. Isn't there a difference between registered nurse and regular nurses?
So, okay, so there's so many different kinds of nurses. So, you have a registered nurse. So, like I shared with you before, a registered nurse is probably your most popular because that's those people who are registered nurses either have their bachelor's degree, which most people generally do, go to school for 4 years and get their bachelor's degree in nursing. Or if you chose not to go the 4 year college route, you might have attended a 2 year program and got your Associates of Science in Nursing. Um, and if you go, now if you get your BSN, and some people go get their master's, and then you have nurse practitioners, and you also have a nurse anesthetist, if I said that right, or CRNAs, so they are advanced practice nurses.
Oh, I see. Because I thought registered nurses were higher up in terms of what they can do and what they can't do. Isn't there a nurse that can prescribe medicines or something? Is that a registered nurse?
That's a nurse practitioner.
Oh, that's the nurse practitioner.
That's correct. Yep.
Oh, okay. So that's not what your mom is doing? Is that what your mom is doing?
No, so I know it all kind of sounds very similar. So the nurse practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
you have your bachelor's degree and a master's degree. The
Ah, I
the
see.
licensed practitioner nurse only has a certificate.
Licensed practitioner nurse
Right.
has a license.
Has a
Nurse
certificate.
has a
Yeah.
has a certificate. Nurse
Right. Right.
practitioner has bachelor's and master's.
Correct.
I see. So which one are you shooting for?
So I'm going to school to become a registered nurse, and then I am looking into being a nurse practitioner. So I have to get my master's degree.
Wow, I see. So you say you're about to apply for a nursing school.
So I actually put my applications in already. I'm just
Okay.
waiting to hear back now.
Okay. Do you think they're gonna they're gonna accept?
I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident.
Okay. What makes you say that?
I mean, I did the coursework. I finished with a pretty good GPA, so
Okay.
I'm just waiting to hear back now.
Cool. So how bad do you get to be? Do you have to get to fail to get in there?
So it depends on the program because some nursing programs can be very competitive,
Oh, okay.
um, and it depends on the program. In most programs will say that you just need a minimum of like a 2.7 GPA,
Okay.
but normally you have that. I mean, that's the minimum.
Okay.
So, but normally they're not accepting people with a 2.7 GPA. You really need to have something that I'd say at least a 3.5 or higher,
3.5.
uh, because it's really competitive.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Um,
I see.
yeah.
So how many years did you prepare to apply for that program?
So I was moving slow. I was taking prerequisite classes, and like one semester I just took like one class. So I feel like I wasn't really in a rush. I was just taking my time. I mean, it could be quicker. I probably took at least 3 years
Okay.
doing prereqs,
Okay.
but it really shouldn't take that long. If you're like, because I was working full time and doing some other things,
Okay.
but people who aren't working and if they're just focused on school, they can finish the prerequisites before 3 years.
Okay. So you said there was a time when you took one class per semester?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and you were working and doing different things, I guess.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Wow. So 3 years of getting prerequisites. So what are the courses that you remember taking?
So obviously, anatomy and physiology is a huge course. It's one of the main courses that's required to apply for the nursing program. Um, I took like your English, your math. I had to take statistics. Um, I also had to take some other prereqs, like I had to take a communications class, ethics and legal health issues. Um, I'm taking right now, this summer, I'm taking microbiology. So that's also usually a prerequisite for nursing programs and pathophysiology. Now, depending, because now programs are different, so they may have different requirements. Like if you're going to a 4-year program, some may require chemistries and biology and other biology courses, but I haven't had to take chemistry yet. Probably will, but I haven't had to take chemistry yet.
I see. So, so do you remember anything that really stuck out to you when you were taking those courses?
Um, anything that stuck out?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I mean, anatomy and physiology obviously is a very important class, but that's has a lot of things that you're just going to need to remember throughout your career. But also, I'm going to be honest with you, because of the intensity of some of those classes, you learn it for the time, and then it just kind of. I mean, honestly, I was talking to a friend about that. I feel like professors and schools should reconstruct those classes in a way where you can actually walk away knowing more, because literally you just cram to get a good grade, and so you can keep pushing forward. I mean, there's little things I remember, but for the most part, you're just trying to get through the class.
Okay. Okay. So when I walked into the gynecologist's office and
Right.
when Lily was doing the sonogram for the
Right.
the ultrasound, for the first time in my life, I saw how they were counting the number of fingers, number of toes, if the nose is there, ears are there, organs are there, all these things. So, did you have any like aha moment when you were taking those courses as a future nurse, thinking, "Wow," or like like ethical things or moral things or value of human beings or I don't know anything that like just came home to you? Any like spiritual insight or like any any of those moments?
Honestly, I mean, the human body is very complex, and I think even before I took these classes, I remember, like when I was younger, I used to love reading the encyclopedia. I just liked science.
Mm.
But I think taking these classes, kind of seeing the complexities of each of the body systems. I mean, for me, I already know, like, this just didn't come up out of the midst of nowhere. This was definitely designed, masterfully designed, because I mean, some of the organ systems, bro, they're just so detailed. Like, so it's fascinating to see and understand it a little more in depth when you dive into it in some of these classes. So for me, I'm just like, yeah, this was something that was created. It definitely didn't happen in a big bang for me.
So why do you think the theory of Big Bang and evolution is so popular and prominent and has been widely accepted and is considered a fact when many scientific minded people disagree with that notion?
I mean, honestly, in this world that we live in, everybody has a viewpoint. Everybody has something they want to believe in, and rightfully so. They have that right. Um, but I also think that people, for whatever reason, I don't know why we are. Do I want to say afraid? I don't know why some people are afraid to admit that there's a mastermind behind the world. Like, somebody created this. I mean, to me, it just makes sense. Why do we have to? So, either way, it's going to require faith. Like, because we don't see this person who created us,
Yeah.
but, we believe he's good. We didn't see these things. Like, if you believe in evolution and the Big Bang, we didn't see the Big Bang. we didn't see um, humans come from tadpoles and monkeys. So either way, whatever you're believing in is going to require a measure of faith. And I don't know, and I mean,
Okay, so for someone who believes in creation, when you were taking all these classes, did you feel the push that the professors were taking you into?
actually, the professor I had, especially for my anatomy and physiology class, he never professed it, but I could tell by the way he would say and um, express certain things, he definitely leaned more towards creation.
Oh,
Um,
really? Interesting.
mhm. But I do remember taking a biology class some years ago, and they were like pretty much, evolutionists, like, the whole millions of years ago. So I was like, yeah, I know what you're on.
Because when you watch BBC and all these documentaries and all these things, they just assume this is a fact and billions of years,
Right,
millions of years evolved and all these things, and
right,
but we don't see any in between stage monster looking ones yet. So
right.
even now, so it's pretty crazy in my mind to
Right.
accept their claims. But anyway, so how many years later do you think you're gonna become a nurse?
So the program I applied for, it's for admission for next January. So it's how many semesters is it? 4 semesters. So I should be done December 2023.
Wow.
With
So
yeah,
2 years.
yeah.
So nursing program is 2 years.
Good. So yeah, so I'm doing the 2-year associates program. Um, Remember I was telling you you can do a 4-year BSN or you can do a 2-year associates in science. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So when you get a 2 year degree and when you get a 4 year degree, does that put you on a different scale in terms of where you actually get started?
Honestly, because I've spoken with nurses who've done the 2-year program and the 4-year program, you literally start off the same.
Oh, really?
Um, yes, but I mean, it's always encouraged to go ahead and get your, like if you do the 2-year program, they always encourage you to go ahead and get your bachelor's, get that out of the way. But as far as pay scale and all that kind of stuff, I've been told from nurses, you pretty much start off at the same.
Okay. I guess it's just more expensive and longer, and you learn a little bit more.
Right. So some people may choose the 2-year route because at least it's not as expensive and pretty much save money.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you say you would like to go to a master's program. So, is that you're foreseeing doing online classes while you work?
Correct. So, the world of education is so advanced now and they're so flexible. So I've looked into it. So once I finish the 2-year program, they actually have, because normally, you have to have a bachelor's to go on to get your master's. So they actually have, some schools have a um, associates to master's program. So it's like a bridge program. So in that program, I'll get my bachelor's and my master's at the same time. And it kind of, I think it's depending on if you go full time or part time. I think I can finish in like 2.5 years with that. So that's what I'm leaning towards when I'm done with this 2-year program. Getting my master's right after. But while I'm doing that, I can work full time or part time as a nurse once I pass the NCLEX
Wow,
and do that program. So,
cool.
and the good thing too about this, a lot depending on the hospital or if you're working for a university hospital, a lot of university hospitals, if you're working for them, they will either pay full tuition or they'll give you some kind of tuition reimbursement. So,
Wow. So after you start working,
right,
your
right.
job will pay you the pay for the master's program.
right, even now, as I'm working as a nursing assistant,
Oh, even now,
um,
even now.
like I said, depending on the institution, they do offer tuition assistance. So,
Oh, so is that what you're getting?
mhm, mhm,
Because you're a good student.
as I'm a good student.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you work hard, you can study and you can pay off all that debt, and then you're gonna come out debt free.
Right, right.
That's beautiful. So have you been always a good student when you're growing up?
If I'm honest with you, like in high school, I wasn't like a bad student or was I dumb. I just
Average.
never put a lot of emphasis on my academics. And that's, I mean, I'm just being honest. Because, a lot of times when we grow up in a certain environment, like if you have parents who are very academic or who are big on you doing well, you do. Neither of my parents went to college. So, I mean, they wanted us to do well, but they weren't like, you need to do this, you need to have A's. Because some people come from homes like that. I didn't come from a home like that. So I was never really pushed to excel academically. So I kind of just did the bare minimum, honestly.
Okay. So you're too stressed about having to excel in school all the time.
Right.
Like most Asian kids are probably pressured to a very extreme extent.
Right, right. No, that wasn't my experience.
Yeah, I think many Asian kids would be whipped to death unless you get straight A's or something. Get
No,
that
I
full
was
scholarship. Do you think we came
right.
to this foreign country for nothing? You need to get straight A's. You need to make a lot of money. We sacrifice a lot for you. So I guess you didn't grow up in the kind of family.
That wasn't my experience.
Wow. Actually, for me, it's very hard to imagine because when I wanted to get a part-time job, getting like distributing all this like chicken like flyers, chicken like restaurant flyers on different
Right.
apartment doors. My mom is like, "What's wrong with you? I'm giving you all this money. You're not trying. You don't need to make money right now. All you need to do is to study, 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 to study, and get a good education, and then make that money later on. You don't need to make that money." So, I was always pressured all my life, studying all day long. Ah,
Okay.
miserable life. Hated it.
That was definitely not my experience. Honestly, like, when it came to like, especially when you're like in elementary and middle school, for me, like there were certain things and subjects I needed help on. And when you're at that age, you assume your parents know everything, right? They didn't know some of that stuff. So I didn't know that they didn't know, but they had me go to my older brother since he took those classes already. And, he helped me with it. But my parents didn't know about the academic material that, I was given in school. So they sent me to my older brother.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, let me ask you this. So, what influence did your family or your parents give you in terms of picking your career? Did they gently suggest or like strongly urge you to take that route, or what happened?
Okay, so let me tell you this. So college, okay, so they wanted us to finish high school. Like I did, because they didn't go to college. So high school, I think at that point was like, do that. If you go to college, good, but it wasn't like a requirement. So they never really um, pushed any of us, like my siblings, in any particular direction. If we wanted to go to college, that was where we wanted to go. Um, so I mean, like I said, when I decided to look into nursing, my mom was in the field, so she never discouraged me, but she was just like, make sure that's what you want to do, because some people go into it, they don't like it, but she said, just make sure that's what you want to do. So my parents have always been supportive. Like they never have told us you're gonna do this. They just like if we chose something, they're like, okay, they've just always been supportive.
Wow, cool. So I guess you've been driven to be a nurse. So, what are the influences other than familiar influence or the lacking service oriented practice of the medical system? What other influences would you say you were exposed to in going that route?
You mean outside of
Yeah, outside of your
the?
family, outside of looking, witnessing different things lacking in the industry.
I don't know. I know what really helped me make like confirm the decision was when I first got a job as a nursing assistant.
Oh, okay.
Um, like, 'cause I purposely wanted to work as a nursing assistant to see if this is what I wanted to do.
Oh, I see.
So, so when I got the job, it was, I mean, honestly, it's hard work. I mean, anybody you know that's a nursing assistant is like, yeah, it's a long day. And then sometimes you honestly, you have patients that you love. You have some patients that are a little bit more challenging because there's patients who need your care, but they don't really want it. And those are the people I think that are is the hardest to care for. It's like they need you and they know they need you, but they're gonna treat you like crap. Like,
Wow.
but you need me. You can't get up and go to the bathroom without me, but they're gonna cuss you out anyway.
Oh, I see. They're so miserable and um, discouraged that they don't have
Right,
energy to treat you nicely.
right,
I see.
right.
So, what is a day like as a nursing assistant?
Ooh, let's see. So, okay, so, most people, it varies, but I'm going to tell you a lot of nurses and nursing assistant work 12-hour shifts. So, from when I first started as a nursing assistant, you come in at 7 o'clock in the morning. One thing we do right off the bat was we give report for the people who were working night shift on the patients that we have for the day. And um, after we get a report, we start getting vital signs. We check everybody's blood pressures, we check their oxygen levels, their pulse. If there's patients who are still in the bed, we help them get up, get in the chair. Breakfast is coming. Um, After that, normally, this is, you pretty much make up your own routine of how you want to do things, but you'd have certain patients who needed to be cleaned up, need to take a shower again, and this is the thing, some patients are a little bit more independent than others, so you have some patients who may just need you to set things up for them, they got it. Other patients, you pretty much got to do everything. You got to bathe them, you got to wipe them, you got to, you got to do everything. Uh, so easily, your day can go. I'd say your day can go by fast because you have so much to do, and a lot of the stuff is like repeated over. You're helping people go to the bathroom. You're helping clean somebody up. Helping somebody go to the bathroom again. Um, it just really depends on the kind of area you're working in and the kind of patients that you have.
I see. So you have 12-hour shift and you have to uh, record all the things so the next person that comes in can see what already happened, and then you
Mhm.
take all the vital signs and then you clean, you wipe, and all these things,
Right.
and it can be challenging, but you say you're enjoying it.
Right.
Explain to me, please.
That's a good explanation of what I was doing when I first started. Now, JY, I still am a nursing assistant. Well, I'm a nursing assistant, but I guess another word for me, what I'm doing now is a patient care tech. That's my title right now at the
Patient
Children's Hospital.
caretaker
Patient care technician,
technician. Okay.
just another name for a nursing assistant.
Okay.
Um, so I work at a children's hospital right now,
Okay.
but all those things I described to you, in the unit that I'm working in, I don't really do. It's a little more. I won't say laid back because we still work, but it's a different kind of work. Like, because I work in um, I work right now. I work in a post anesthesia unit. So this is basically people who are coming in for surgery. So we prep them for surgery. We have them when they come out for recovery, and then they either go home if it was an outpatient surgery, or we admit them to a floor if it's inpatient. so we don't have a ton of responsibility, and they're kids. So a lot of the stuff I mentioned to you before, like cleaning, wiping, we don't really do all of that. This is like a surgical unit.
So you moved from one department to another,
Mhm.
and you're enjoying it more now.
I like it. I mean, it's a nice break from what I was doing before. Because I mean, honestly, in this work, you can get burnt out. So I think because they have so many different areas you can go, if you feel like you're going to get burnt out, I think it's good to move. Because I mean, for me, I never want to lose the compassion that I have for these people. But now I feel like I kind of want to go back to what I was doing before because what I'm doing now is kind of boring.
Okay, so you want the challenge back sometimes. Okay.
You know,
So when you become a nurse, a registered nurse and nurse practitioner, do they also need
right?
to do that kind of wiping and bathing?
No, so in most professional fields, the higher you go, the more plus your job is. But I've always said this. I don't care how many degrees I have or what I'm doing, especially in this particular field, I'm always going to be ready to get my hands dirty because that's the job of a nurse. I don't feel like you should ever get to the point where you feel like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. You know, no, you should. I feel like you should always be ready to do it, no matter what. Uh, that's how I feel anyway. But but to answer your question, most don't. Like especially when you become a nurse practitioner, you're really not wiping butts because your job is a little bit more advanced.
I see.
You
So,
leave that you leave that for the RNs and the nurses, the nursing assistants.
oh, okay. So registered nurses can also wipe in,
Right,
and bathe
because
also.
right, because the nursing assistant is working closely with the RN, so they have to work together to get those things done.
Okay. There is no unregistered nurses, right?
I guess that's what you could call the LPN. They're
LVN.
not registered. You know,
What is LVN?
the LPN, that's the licensed practitioner nurse. That's what my mom is.
Okay.
Hmm.
Licensed practitioner nurse.
Hmm.
Oh,
That's the one that I told you that she went to vocational college for, and that's like
oh,
a 6 month to a year program.
okay. I see. I thought there were nurses that go through 4 year trainings, but I thought registered nurses have to pass additional tests to be that registered nurses, but I guess that's not true.
So I guess you're right. You're right. Right. So you can go to college. You can take your 4 years degree. You can graduate with your BSN and not be a nurse if you don't sit down and take the board exam.
But most people do pass.
Right? 'Cause why waste? I mean, why do you go through those 4 years and not sit down and take the board exam? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess the just to get into nursing itself is already challenging. Then most people that go through nursing programs will end up passing the board exams.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And a lot of the schools you go to help prepare you for that board exam. So
Okay. So probably almost nobody fails if they actually are serious about it.
right. Right. If they're serious about passing, they'll pass.
Oh, I see.
I mean, some people may have to take it more than once, but you know.
Wow, pretty cool. I have one last question. So you said you didn't really study that much when you were growing up, but how did you like excel recently?
I mean, I think honestly, I mean, I was an average student, so I wasn't like above average or anything. Like I told you, I just did the bare minimum. I wasn't trying to be that A student. I just like was like, okay, that's done, homework's done. I passed that test, so I'm good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, so you're as good as to be accepted,
Right.
but you weren't like I'm the top of the class or anything.
Mhm. Now, and I feel like, but Jay, well, I feel like if I actually was diligent, I could have been. Like I'm not like a dumb dumb, but I just feel like I told you, I just didn't really put a lot into it. But if I did, I know for sure, like I probably would have been like a straight A student.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And because I see you dancing and all these things, and I see your naked upper body, you're exercising, all these things, I think you're gonna be a very interesting nurse. So, what kind of nurses would you like to become that makes you stand out or unique?
So, I haven't decided yet what particular area. I mean, I'm interested in pediatrics, working with kids. Um, a lot of people told me they think I do well working with kids. So I'm just unsure. I haven't really decided what type of nurse that I want to be yet.
I see. I guess the question was more of like, what do you want your patients to remember you as?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, kind of how they see me now as a nursing assistant. JY, I get a lot. I mean, last year at the hospital I was working at, I was recognized as the patient care tech of the week. And that's just because my supervisor, she told me, she's like, every time she goes to survey patients, she's like, Kevin, I'm always hearing good things about you. The patients want to take you home so you can take care of them at home. So, I mean, I guess that's that. What they see me as now, I want them to see me as a nurse.
Oh, that's great. They love you. They love how they actually you actually serve them.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you see people that are like becoming like burnt out along the way, like
You mean like nurses?
nurses or doctors? Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I had some coworkers that I worked with. They just feel burned out. They feel exhausted. One girl I work with, she was going to go to school for nursing, but she changed her mind. She was like, I don't think this is for me. Because like I told you, the work can be grueling. It can be exhausting. Um, and I think that's why a lot of even older nurses and doctors, I do believe when they first went into it, they went in it with good intentions. But you know how it is when you do something for a long time. You're just like, you're just doing it to do it, and they go home afterwards. But I have seen that. But I think the trick to it is, JWoww, when we get into something, how do we, um, especially if we're going to be doing it for 20 plus years, how do we keep a fresh sense of why we chose to do this so that we don't lose sight of that 30 years down the road?
So have you seen those people in the hospital or among your family members?
I have. I mean, like I said, I feel like I said, the longer you're in it, you tend to forget. And I think, you know how it is like running a race. You start off running a race. There's a lot of people who start off, and then there's fewer at the end. I feel like that's the same way here. Um, you see people um, who started off with good intentions, and then towards the end of the race, they've been in it for 20 years. They're like, yeah, you'll still have a few people who when they started, they had the same intentions they had when they started 30 years ago, but it's fewer. Does that make sense?
So do you remember anyone that like totally stand out? Like this person is not rotten yet. Like this person is still fresh.
Let me think. Maybe half. I can't think of like any older nurses that I worked with. I can probably think of some who probably have like in the midway somewhere. Not they weren't just new, but probably midway somewhere that were amazing. Like I loved working with them. Great, amazing nurses. You know, um,
How are they different?
it's just the like you see the compassion, you see the genuineness in their approach to the care of the patient.
Wow.
And a lot of times, JY, as a nursing assistant, I hate to say this, but sometimes you have nurses that will throw off all the dirty work on you. They're like, oh, this patient needs that. Or, but like I told you, you're a nursing assistant. I'm here to assist you and help you. We're a team, but a lot of times they'll just throw off the work on you, like, oh, yeah, go do this, go do that. And to me, that's why I said, some RNs feel like they don't need to do the wiping or the bathing because that's what I'm for. But no, that's your job too. I'm here to help you. Um, but I guess for me, when I see a nurse that really cares, that doesn't matter to them. They're like, oh, yeah. And sometimes, if I'm busy doing something else, I'll see a nurse go in there and start bathing the patient. To me, that's, you're still in it for the right intentions. But some people won't do none. Some nurses won't do any of that stuff, JY. They're like, that's your job.
Oh, when you see nurses that are doing dirty work they don't need to do, they could just hand over to you, but they still
Right.
choose to pick up and do it. You just see, wow. When you
Right.
see someone actually love people and even love their coworkers, treat you
Right.
with respect.
Right. Right.
Wow, that's beautiful. Because I've been hearing from nurses that some doctors or some people that are higher up don't treat them nicely and they're bitter about it. So I guess teamwork is very crucial.
It is. I mean, I've heard that too, JY. Like some of the nurses, because the nurses can only do so much because you need doctors' orders to give certain medications or to do certain things, and sometimes it's just the communication. Like the doctors are rude, they're nasty. I'm like, I don't, and I never understood that. 'Cause I'm like, to take care of this patient, to give this patient the ultimate care, all of us have to be on the same page, and sometimes they're not.
Yeah, love is the ultimate medicine. So wow, thank you, Kevin.
Of course.
I guess, am I allowed to interview you again in 5 years after you become a nurse?
Wait, of course, I welcome that.
So 2026.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, stay fresh until then,
I will.
and do visit us if you can with Cynthia.
Of course, of course. And you guys can come here as well. We welcome you
Sure,
back to America.
we'll try. We'll try. Thank you, Kevin.
No problem.
I'll see you
My
next
pleasure.
time again.
All right.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.